Okay, then I start. Okay, I go. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will sit down first.
Yeah.
Hey.
Hey.
So, hey guys, I'm Ronny. First of all, thanks for introducing, but I wouldn't say that I'm famous. I'm just doing a bit of social media and doing a bit of medfluencer and healthfluencer content focused on female health. But basically I'm coming from nutritional science. I started a company in 2023 with a co-founder of mine, which is a biologist and is focused on the female microbiome, and we invented a product that is actually supporting the female gynecological microbiome. And this is why we are in contact to a lot of gynecologists, a lot of biologists, and really do innovation in female health. And actually my passion is coming from my family, because my grandpa is one of the inventors. It was a team of 3 that invented the contraception pill here in Germany. So I think most people somehow had to do with it. From day one, actually, for me, female health was the center of what was happening in our family. And that's maybe a short introduction about me.
So next, Karin Höhne. We've known each other for quite some time already because we've worked together, and we've also had a podcast together, so that's what I meant. Yes. Okay. And we've also done a podcast episode together. And it was about equality and what equality actually means. And why are you an expert on that?
Yes, I would say thanks for inviting me, and it felt like really an educational part listening to you, so thanks for that as well. I would say I'm rather an expert on the topic of equality and diversity in the academic world. Not so much about menstrual health, but of course it's a topic. So I've been working in academia and in the field of equality and diversity since many years, and I'm right now working at the Berlin Institute of Health at Charité, and I'm heading the Equal Opportunity and Diversity unit there, dealing with a lot of topics to support individuals, but also trying to remove barriers, change the system, and really make the academic world more inclusive and open for people coming from different backgrounds and bringing in different things to the research field.
So that is also my first question to you. How many gaps are there, and how far along is medical research in gender health?
Yeah, I think there are so many gaps, and you can start with the publication gap, the citation gap, the visibility gap. There's so many gaps, and of course we also have this gap, content-wise. What kind of research do we see, and how is this developing, and how much of a really gender-sensitive research do we see, and not only women's health, which is a really important part of research. I don't want to deny it. But thinking gender-sensitive research in a broader sense and including gender perspective into everything we do in medical research, I think there's still a huge gap.
Mm-hmm. And there's mostly women doing diversity research as of now, and that's why I'm so happy to welcome you here, Ronny, because you also do women's health and longevity, and I would really like to ask you, how did you come to that, and why?
Yeah, actually that's the typical first question whenever I'm on stage. So why did we land on female health and female biology? To be 100% honest, that was not planned from day one. So what we saw actually, and what we found, is that we tried to focus on a problem that was not really understood 2 or 3 years ago, which is basically the whole microbiome. So a microbiome, most of you that have to do with longevity somehow heard about it. So it's the bacteria, mainly bacteria that you have in your body. It's mainly focused around the gut. So about digestion, bloating, things like that. But what we saw with my co-founder, who like did 15 years of research in female microbiome, is that the female biology is different to men, 1%. Yeah, so there's a gynecological tract which is actually colonized by different bacteria. It's not about the gut. Yeah, so it's also about the gynecological bacteria that you have, and this is mainly connected to fertility. There's a huge connection to endometriosis, intimate health, inflammation. Yeah, so and basically we just try to understand the biological problem that we see, which is like impacting so many people. Yeah, so we see like millions of women just in Germany that are struggling from problems like endometriosis, intimate health, cycle health problems. And we try to understand the connection to microbiome. Yeah, so it was like the big mission we had, and that we landed on the female biology was actually connected to the biological system that is not existent in like biologically male people. Yeah.
But you also create content for that, right? So
yeah, I also create content, and this was connected to the whole journey because. I was coming from nutritional science, yeah, so I have basic understanding of it, yeah. So, but the more I was talking to researchers in female health, to gynecologists, yeah, to different people that are actually really deeply involved into the space, I learned so much about like female biology, also about like just one thing that was like a first aha moment, let's say, was that you all know folic acid, yeah. So and one fact is that like a huge number of women have like a genetic predisposition which not allows to metabolize the normal folic acid well. Yeah, so you need a different methylated form of it. Yeah, so and it was like a fact that like this was the first fact where I said, okay, why actually no one knows about it. Yeah, so it's so important, and we have so many women that are actually struggling of taking folic acid and have like symptoms and stuff like that. And this is something you can actually solve that easy, just taking another form of it. Yeah, so that's why I was like that deeply interested in, okay, like let's shout it out to the world, like what we should do and what you can do. And that's why I started with like the social media thing. And yeah, I think it's quite interesting, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, it's super interesting, and I'm also super happy to have you in this sphere. And my next question goes to Danielle, because you've already talked about menstruation, like stigma, and what it's actually about. But are there still myths that you encounter, like on one-on-one sessions or when you give talks or workshops, that like baffle you?
I wouldn't say they baffle me because I've been working in this space for so long, but I have a lot of empathy towards understanding why. But some of those important myths are like that, yeah, period pain is just something that you have to live with. And my mom had it, or we as Indian women always have period pain, or we as this kind of women, and you can insert culture here. And I feel quite sad when I hear those things, because it's an acceptance that we are meant to suffer, instead of being curious to understand why and what the body actually wants and what's going on beneath the surface. So yeah, I think like hearing people and listening to them in their true resonance with those myths is really important, but also being able to destigmatize that with education and information and really sharing, and asking why do you think that? Okay, that, and then why? Just keep going deeper. Another myth that I hear is that like our cycles make us unpredictable and too emotional. And I think that there is a lot of misogyny in that, and a reluctance to understand that actually if we can understand our hormonal rhythms with more accuracy, then we can actually use them in ways where we can be more productive or be more creative or be more outward or be more inward instead of just having that be completely random. And then they can really become an advantage, because being emotional is not it's not a scar, it's not a bad thing, right? It means that you are...
Can be proud of it.
Yeah, and it means that we are human, and that we are connected, and that we feel. And we've lived in this world where it's like a weakness to feel. And so, I think some of the important things is that we just try to bust myths and give people the permission to listen to their bodies one-on-one with their own bodies, and kind of shut out the noise around, because this enables them to advocate for care from their healthcare providers. It enables them to kind of see their cycles not as something that's holding them back, but as a sign of something that can strengthen them. And I think, like, other than that, there's some silly myths that I used to work at the menstruation exhibition here in Berlin, which was wonderful. Anyone who got the opportunity to go, I hope it was worth your while. But there are some really wild myths around, I'm not allowed to cook tomato sauce during my period because it will make the tomato sauce go bad. Or even within my Jewish family, there were some really crazy myths about, cooking certain things, that the bread won't rise. And, if your mother believed this and your grandmother believed this, then the chances of you believing it are quite high. So it's really being able to ask why? Why do you think that's true? And have you tried it? And I like to ask why.
Mm-hmm. I'm also thinking about barriers that you might encounter, because there's probably also a lot of myths around gynecological health, menstrual health, and also the gut health. Maybe you can give a few examples for us?
Sure. So basically, like, when you're talking about barriers, what I see. So maybe first of all, I say, so like, I'm biologically male and I identify as a male, so I will never be able to talk about the emotional facts, so like what like emotionally it means, like when you have like endometriosis, for example, you're affected by that, so that's why I try to be focused on scientific facts, so that's what I'm also doing with my content, for example, so and this is like, typically this is one of the barriers I see, so when I talk about female health, like that's also like the first question, like why do you like involve in it as a man, so there are people that are open for that, where you say, okay, actually it doesn't matter who's involved in which topic, so it's actually about solving specific problems that can basically help people around the world. And there are also people that are not really open to that, so that's a barrier I see, where I think like events like we're doing today are perfect for that, because you are getting more open-minded, so that's what we need in this world, so no bubbles and something like that, so we have to have like openness for everyone can involve in whichever topic, so when we talk about gut health, so like the first barrier I see is that the most people that are thinking about like microbiome and bacteria are focused on their gut, but the gut is just one part of it. As I said, like biologically female people, they have like a gynecological microbiome, and this is like where not so many people talk about. And we talk when we see traditional medicine in Germany, go to 10 gynecologists here in Germany, let's say 7 of them will nearly know nothing about how the microbiome in the gynecological tract works, so they maybe think about lactic acid, so it's something like that for restoring like pH scores or whatever, but they will never think about reproductive health, PCOS, endometriosis connection to the microbiome, so and this is a huge barrier that's actually based in the huge gender health gap that we have in the education and medical education here in Germany, so And that's why I think the only solution is that you are breaking it up from the inside. Yeah? So you have to involve deeply into the whole scene, also the medical scene. That's why we're doing it also as a company. That's why we did our own research and not just start by doing or sitting on research that's existent and just building product. We did our own research so that we can break it up from the inside. Yeah, that's what we need to do so that the people really get an understanding of topics like that. Yeah.
Yes, and that's super important, same as you. Now we talk about structural changes. So what would you like to see, Karin, and what are you maybe also employing yourself to reduce stigma around female health, menstrual health, and remove barriers, because that is actually what you do in your job.
So I really liked the idea of just talking about what day of the cycle we are on.
Yes.
Maybe this would help in so many situations just to understand where the others are right now. I mean, not focusing on it, but just mentioning like having a headache or whatever it might be on that day.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like this idea. I'm going to take this with me to meetings. So I like this one. No, but I mean that's just a tiny little part of destigmatizing the whole topic. I mean, if I just preparing for today, I thought like, okay, I've been working with women most of my life since I started working, but how often did we really talk about menstruation, menstrual cycle, or maybe also later in life, menopause, or topics centered around these issues which are so important every day. So even in these women-centered groups working with topics such as equality, gender equality, or other topics, it's hardly we hardly talk about these things. Mm-hmm. So that's really interesting, and I'm not sure if it's like if it's a generational gap, because I see some changes now, especially with colleagues who are much younger than me, that it changes. I mean, it's different. It's much more open, the conversation, and it's mentioned much more open, which I really like. So maybe it's also a generational change, but nevertheless, I mean, looking at schoolgirls, or also what you mentioned, or I think you mentioned in the beginning, like how things like the female body and the menstrual cycle are still taught in school. I think there's much room for improvement, but talking about structures, I mean, these are the small steps really we're talking about, like having free menstrual products in a toilet to be available to everyone, like the paper or the soap.
It's crazy that
it feels so
stupid
that we need to talk about these things, but I mean, these are the steps we are taking, and these are measures we try to change, which are really like baby steps in normalizing these topics. But what I also we talked about it in the beginning, when we just met here in this room, what I see much more often now in different, I mean, I work in research institutes, so most of the colleagues I know also come from these environments, that people really want to have workshops, they want to have talks, they invite people to give lectures on menstruation, on menopause, on how it affects the working life, the ability to work, what we can change to accommodate our working environment to different phases in life. So I think that's kind of a change we see, and everyone's like, okay, we have a good lecturer we can invite, and it's like exchanging contacts. So there is a shift, but still it's not that open as you started your talk with.
Mm-hmm. I'm so happy that is also the last question that I wanted to ask, because we've just said it's not talked about much. So that is like one of the biggest problems, that even in like female groups, we don't talk about these issues, and you have the opportunity now to, if you have a question, to any one of these experts to ask. And yeah, Does anyone have a question for today about periods, about female health, about all the topics that we've covered? Yeah.
I can do it, but
Okay.
thank you very much. First of all, it was very interesting to hear you out. My question is for Danielle. You said that if your body's constantly having some issues, it's a sign. But what if there is a shift of regular behavior to some different type of behavior of your body?
Mhm.
Is it also a sign, and what kind of sign it could be, if it changed to what you believe, and maybe it's also kind of this educational gap, which you believe should be happening with you when you're younger, but then it's happening with you when you're older. So what kind of sign it could be?
I think I understand your question, but it could be a transition to perimenopause, for example. Perimenopause starts around 35. For most people, we have this bizarre conception that it's old ladies with gray hair who have menopause. It's not. The last period happens around 51, and we're living longer and longer and longer these days. So it's really like you have the whole rest of your life where you're not going to have your period, really, the next half. And I think we have to take a holistic approach. Like, our nervous systems are very, very sensitive to change, to stress, to toxic work environments, to toxic people, to toxic relationships. And even if we're like eating every day, you know, like protein for breakfast and going on our yoga run, whatever, we have to really look and see that like all of the pillars of vitality in our lives are being touched upon, because if we're sleeping like shit and eating really well, then they kind of balance themselves out and we still have issues. I think that unfortunately the medical system is not developing in the same pace that average women's understanding of their own bodies, thanks to social media and a lot of new books that have come out and podcasts and whatnot. And so there's a huge gap now between the medical system and those people. And there's this huge emergence of menstrual coaches and menstrual guides and whatnot. And so really being able to utilize those people, not as supplements to doctors, but as people who can help fill that gap, who can help educate you, tell you which books to read, really analyze your symptoms and give you the time that you deserve to understand your family history, to understand what's currently going on right now. Did you recently have a breakup? Did you have a new job? Did you just move from somewhere? Like, there's so many different questions that healthcare providers simply don't have time to ask you. And I think that we need that kind of whole body consideration, not just of our physical symptoms, but also of our emotional and mental health as well. So to answer your question, shifts happen all the time, and there's usually reasons why, and some of them might be more obvious to you, and sometimes you just need to bounce it off someone who might know a little bit more to be able to reflect it back to you.
Thank you. Amazing talk, by the way.
More questions?
Yeah.
Do you want the
No, I
microphone?
can do it.
Okay.
Do you think that like modern day contraception as birth control is kind of like against kind of getting in tune with your body and also truly understanding your body? Because I now feel that in the younger generation it's very vogue to, for example, taking the pill all the way through and just ignoring this your own body. And for me, for example, I was under like hormones until I was like, I don't know, like above 30, and then I just started to realize like and get in tune with my body. So that's my first question. So what do you think about that, and what has to be changed also on the medical side? And my second question is to Ronny. If you say like that, for example, all these different bacteria can also lead to for example, medical problems, where would you, like, are there specialists? Like, where do you go if you want to get, like, more educated about this or more help?
I think, thank you for mentioning the birth control question. I always usually make a note, but it was a really short presentation. Birth control is not inherently bad. It has helped so many people for so long, and it's really been part of the women's liberation movement to be able to have sex with the freedom of knowing that you're not going to get pregnant. I mean, that is huge, okay? At the same time, because multiple things can be true at the same time, the effect that hormonal birth control has on the body over time wasn't really well studied before we started to push it out to the masses. And actually the first longitudinal study of birth control being taken over 10 years only came out in 2016, even though people have been on birth control since the 1960s. And those studies show that there was more depression, there was more nutrient malabsorption. There's a whole host of issues that come with prolonged use of birth control, but essentially it depends on the person's priorities and what they want for their lives. For some people, they know that the risks completely, or the benefits outweigh the risks, and it's totally fine for them, and they can be on birth control for their whole lives, and they end up happy and healthy and fine, you know? But then other people start to notice that the birth control was masking some really important symptoms, like around acne or around painful periods. And then once they decide to go off of it, those symptoms come back really heavily, which meant that the root cause wasn't dealt with. So I think we have to have more scrutiny and ask more questions to our doctors around birth control, because unfortunately it's been given as a panacea for everything, and unfortunately it's been given to girls at very young ages when they don't have the wherewithal to make their own decisions, and they also have blatantly said things that are just not true, like that birth control will like regulate your periods. Like, that is just absolutely false, because it prevents you from ovulating. And how can you regulate your periods if you're not ovulating? So there's just a lot of like misinformation, and I just wish that there was more access to clear information so that people could make their own choices and know the risks and benefits of those choices.
Yeah, maybe also to this point, like birth control, like I would 100% agree to that, what you're saying, Danielle, because I think like one of the big problems that we had and still have is that there's a lack of education and information from the like medical system side. Yeah, so actually, whenever you have like skin problems or somehow like emotional things that you don't understand, like typically the first thing you get is like, yeah, let's take a pill. Yeah, so even if you don't want it, like that's the only solution that most people have for you. Is so if you are taking it over years, for sure, if you're stopping taking it, it makes a lot of sense to talk to someone that really understands what you should do now, because just stop taking the pill will definitely somehow lead to biological changes, especially me coming from nutritional science. Like the pill will affect, for example, your B vitamins. Yeah, so you should actually start with a good blood panel to check, okay, what is the state of my nutritional scores and values, and optimize that, for example. Yeah, so so whenever someone says, okay, I want to stop taking the pill for whichever reason, I would say, okay, try to find someone that is able to educate you about that, or try to get a lot of information, not just do it. Yeah, so that's the first question. And the second question, microbiome per se is a really young discipline in science. Yeah, so when we're talking about 20 years in science, it's nothing. Yeah, 20 years medicine and medical research is really not that much. Yeah, so it's still a fresh and new topic. That's why typically when you want to educate yourself about like the female microbiome, you typically then on studies that are not German. Yeah, so it's typically made in US, a bit as like the Nordics. Yeah, so there's like the main players there. Yeah, so when you want to check your microbiome, And this is a problem that we have. You can do like a vaginal swab, for example, but there you just get your vaginal microbiome. Yeah, so there's also an endometrial microbiome, which is important, for example, fertility. Yeah, so an endometrial microbiome, they typically need to get like material out of like your uterus. Yeah, so and this is like something that is connected to side effects, a lot of costs, etc. Yeah, so what I would do is actually talk to your gynecologist about like if there's actually knowledge about the microbiome. If there's no knowledge, you will find providers that are able to do testing in clinics. Yeah, so if you are in big cities like Berlin, whatever, Munich, Cologne, Leipzig, yeah, so you typically have microbiome units there that are able to test it. Yeah, so and for sure, for a lot of people, it makes sense to support the microbiome in a specific way through nutrition, through like taking specific probiotics, where you also need to be a bit careful when it's about the gut. Yeah, so the gynecological microbiome is a bit more less diverse than the gut microbiome. Yeah, so but for sure it makes sense to focus on, okay, could it maybe be a microbiome problem, and then just try to test it or optimize it for some months and see the results. Yeah, so.
But you got no names for us, like names.
Names like people or clinics or yeah, I think also the Charité, for example, they have a microbiome unit. So I don't know how much for sure they are also involved in the gynecological microbiome. I don't know how the access to it is actually for people that just want to get testing. Yeah, so when you're talking about like supporting the microbiome, that's what we are doing with the company. So we have a product for that, which is not focused on the gut. It's just like about the gynecological microbiome. And when you have players that are focused on testing it, you have like different, for example, city labs, or you have providers like, I will not do like advertising, but there are also like players like whatever, SynLab, for example, they do like vaginal swab tests, yeah, from home, which is actually easy, but it's so expensive. Like that's really saying it's pain in the ass because it's like it's a new topic and it's about female health, so this together leads to massive costs. That's a huge problem. Yeah, so for a vaginal swab test at home, you will pay about $250, something like that. Yeah, so it's quite expensive. You can do the same when you ask your gynecologist, and typically your insurance will take care for a part of it, let's say. Not for the whole thing, but for a part of it. Yeah.
There's an amazing startup in the US called Evvy, EVVY, and they've been kind of the first company to really go hard on the vaginal microbiome, and they're very much evidence-based. The founder is great. You can find her on lots of different podcasts where she just nerds out on the microbiome. And as Ronny said, this is an emerging field and there's so much new information, and also like, it's kind of like doing a hormone test. You do it on one day of your cycle, but then your hormones are changing like all throughout the month. It's similar with your vaginal microbiome because it changes during menstruation, it changes during your follicular phase because you have these surge of hormones. So we're not there yet where we can be like continuously monitoring any things in our bodies. Like the furthest we've gotten is the continuous glucose monitor for, you know, like glucose checking and for metabolic health and insulin and whatnot. But I feel like we're about 3 to 5 years out, where soon, you know, with the go-to-market strategies and whatnot, we will be able to access these femtech products that enable us to have kind of like a snapshot over time, so that we can be looking at patterns and seeing things over 3 months rather than just going to the doctor for one swab, which just tells how it was on April 7th, you know?
I'm so sorry, but we're already 9 minutes over time. But all the rest of the questions, you can ask them now. So I think we'll just maybe mingle a bit, because I think the people who are here probably also want to talk to you and me, and we can just chat about everything you want to know or you want to ask, just in person. Maybe there's also like one-on-ones or something that you would like to ask, but you're too shy right now. So we're here and we're super happy to talk to you guys. And one last thing, there is the goodie bags, and you can get the stuff. Yeah, just take them. Don't be shy, okay?